Have you ever noticed how someone close to you starts behaving strangely, but they won't explain why? One day they're warm, the next they're distant. Their tone shifts, their reactions change, and suddenly you're left wondering what just happened. But what if I told you that their strange behavior isn't random? It's a signal. It's like a door that used to open easily, now sticking at the hinges. Or like a phone call where the connection is fine, but the other person has gone quiet. Just like the jammed door and the silent line, their behavior isn't broken. It's revealing. It's showing you tension they can't name, emotions they're trying to hide, or intentions they're not ready to admit. Because when someone acts off, it's rarely about the moment. It's about something brewing underneath: resentment, guilt, fear, or even the fear of being left behind. And while you're trying to make sense of it, they're already telling you everything through their silence. So how do you decode it without losing your peace? How do you stop personalizing what was never about you to begin with? Stay with me until the end, because the final insight will change the way you see their distance forever. Let's begin. Number 1, they're hiding something. Let's talk about one of the most unsettling things you can experience: when someone suddenly starts acting off. Maybe they become distant, irritable, or unusually quiet. Maybe their energy shifts, their tone changes, or they begin to contradict themselves in small, confusing ways. You notice the difference, but when you ask them if something's wrong, they say, "No, I'm fine." But deep down, you know they're not. Because here's the truth: people don't just act strangely for no reason. Sudden distance, mood swings, or inconsistent behavior often mean one thing: they're hiding something. And no, it's not always something sinister. It could be guilt, it could be fear, it could be a lie they haven't told you yet, or something they're too scared to admit. But what's important is this: when someone's behavior becomes unpredictable, it usually means they're no longer aligned with honesty. Whether it's a friend, a partner, or even a co-worker, when their actions stop matching their words, they're no longer showing you their real self. They're showing you their internal conflict. Here's the truth: people will often mask their discomfort with weird behavior. They'll get sarcastic when things get too real. They'll pull away emotionally when they feel exposed. They'll suddenly get too busy when they're trying to avoid a difficult conversation. That strangeness you're sensing, it's not just them being moody. It's often the byproduct of something unspoken pressing on their conscience. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What a man hides reveals more than what he says." Think about that. The silence, the withdrawal, the strange tone in their voice, it's all communication, just not the kind that uses words. When someone changes suddenly, they're telling you something with their behavior. Your job isn't to decode every detail, it's to pay attention, trust your instincts, and respond with clarity instead of confusion. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, had a longtime friend named Sarah who, out of nowhere, started pulling away. She'd cancel plans last minute, act distracted during conversations, and give vague excuses about being overwhelmed. At first, Emily thought it was just stress. But eventually, Sarah admitted she'd been talking behind Emily's back and felt guilty every time they spoke. Her strange behavior wasn't random, it was a mask for guilt. And it taught Emily a powerful lesson: trust behavior more than words. So if someone in your life suddenly starts acting strangely, don't ignore it. Behavior is a mirror. People may not always tell you the truth, but they'll show it. The question is, are you willing to see it? Number 2, they feel envy or resentment. Let's talk about one of the most uncomfortable but common reasons someone starts behaving strangely around you. They're feeling envy or resentment. And the hardest part, they'll rarely admit it. Instead, they'll change in subtle ways. Their tone gets colder, Their compliments turn passive-aggressive. Their enthusiasm for your wins quietly disappears. You'll notice the shift not because they say something obvious, but because the warmth that was once there slowly fades. Here's the truth. Sometimes people act strangely because they're secretly struggling with envy, even if they don't fully realize it themselves. Maybe you're growing in ways they're not. Maybe your life is moving forward while they feel stuck. And instead of acknowledging those emotions or being inspired by your progress, they turn bitter. But instead of being open about how they feel, they bury it. And what surfaces instead? Sarcasm, withdrawal, backhanded comments, or that strange sense that they're cheering for you with clenched teeth. And this is where Stoic wisdom becomes crucial. Seneca once said, "The bitterness of others is not your burden to carry." Think about that. You are not responsible for someone else's jealousy. You are not required to shrink yourself just because someone else is uncomfortable with your light. If your presence triggers resentment in someone, it says more about the wounds they haven't healed than it does about anything you've done. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was finally getting her life together. She had overcome a difficult chapter and was starting a business she'd dreamed about for years. At first, her friend Jenna seemed supportive, but slowly, Rachel noticed things shift. Jenna would downplay her accomplishments. "That's cool, but are you sure it's going to last?" And stop showing up when it mattered. She became emotionally distant, even moody during conversations that used to be fun. Rachel was confused until she realized something painful but freeing. Her growth had created distance. Not because Rachel changed, but because Jenna hadn't. So how do you deal with this kind of behavior? First, stop taking it personally. Their resentment is a reflection of their own internal struggle, not your success. Second, don't dull your light to make someone else feel comfortable. You're not here to make others feel okay about staying stagnant. And finally, know when to create space. If someone consistently makes you feel bad for winning, it's okay to let them watch your growth from a distance. At the end of the day, you can't control how someone reacts to your progress, but you can choose whether to carry their bitterness on your back. And when someone starts acting strangely, sometimes it's not about what you did, it's about what you represent. Growth, courage, movement. And not everyone is ready to face what your rise reveals in their own life. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, they're testing you. Let's talk about a quiet but powerful form of manipulation. When someone starts acting strangely, not out of confusion or insecurity, but on purpose, they're testing you. They pull back emotionally, act distant, or grow cold, not because something's wrong, but because they want to see how you'll respond. Will you chase them? Will you question your worth? Will you bend, over-explain, or try harder to win back their approval? That's exactly what they want, to watch you flinch, just to prove they have that kind of influence over you. Here's the truth. Strange behavior isn't always a symptom of emotional chaos. Sometimes it's strategic. Some people deliberately create tension to see if you'll crack under the weight of silence. They want to know how far they can pull before you break. They want to feel powerful without ever having to say a word. This isn't miscommunication, it's control. And the moment you start overthinking your every word, doubting your value, or changing your behavior just to restore peace, they know the test is working. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes essential. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man of peace does not flinch when others twist the air around him." That means staying calm even when someone around you tries to disturb your emotional atmosphere. When someone tests you through distance, silence, or cold behavior, the most powerful thing you can do is not react. Your calmness is your clarity. Your silence is your self-respect. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Jacob, started dating someone who would regularly withdraw without explanation. Everything would be fine for a few weeks, and then suddenly she'd stop responding to texts, act indifferent, and pull away emotionally. At first, Jacob panicked. He'd send long messages, apologize for things he didn't even know he did, and try to fix what hadn't even been explained. But after the third time, he realized this wasn't confusion. It was a pattern. She was testing how far she could push without losing him, and every time he ran after her, he was reinforcing her power. So Jacob did something different. He stopped reacting. He held his peace. And just like that, the spell broke. She came back, not because she missed him, but because the test failed. So how do you handle someone who's testing you through strange behavior? First, recognize it for what it is, a tactic, not a mistake. Second, don't play the game. You're not here to prove your worth to someone who deliberately tries to confuse you. And third, remember that stability doesn't beg for attention. It calmly walks away when peace is disturbed. At the end of the day, if someone's strange behavior is designed to make you chase, the most powerful answer is stillness. Let them test, let them twist. You stay grounded, and you'll find out exactly who's worth your energy. Number 4. They're battling an inner storm. Let's talk about one of the most compassionate interpretations of strange behavior. They're battling an inner storm. Not every shift in someone's energy is personal. Not every cold reply, distant glance, or moody silence is about you. Sometimes people are struggling with something so heavy, so private, they don't have the words to explain it. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just trying to hold themselves together in silence. Here's the truth. Not all strange behavior is a sign of betrayal or manipulation. Sometimes it's quiet suffering. People carry invisible weight, loss, depression, shame, regret, anxiety they can't name. And when they don't know how to express it, it often leaks out through behavior, withdrawal, irritability, isolation. It's not because they want to push you away. It's because they're emotionally overwhelmed and don't know how to ask for help. You might be misreading pain as rejection. You might think their distance means you did something wrong, but in reality, their behavior says, "I'm not okay right now, and I don't know how to show up." This is where Stoic wisdom meets deep empathy. Plato once said, "Be gentle. Everyone you meet is facing a battle you do not see." That reminder matters. Stoicism doesn't mean being cold. It means remaining centered enough to respond with clarity and grace. When someone acts strangely, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about something they haven't shared? That shift in thinking can protect your peace and preserve the relationship, if it's worth keeping. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Michelle, noticed her brother Daniel had started acting strangely. He used to text her every week, always check in, always crack jokes. But over a few months, he grew quiet, distant. Whenever she reached out, he gave short replies or no reply at all. At first, she was hurt. She thought maybe she'd done something wrong. But instead of assuming, she showed up at his apartment one day just to check in. What she found was a brother battling silent depression, overwhelmed with financial stress and feeling ashamed to talk about it. His strange behavior wasn't about Michelle, it was about pain he couldn't voice, and her decision to be gentle instead of reactive made all the difference. So, how do you respond when someone's behavior shifts and you're not sure why? First, take a breath. Don't jump to conclusions. Second, check in with kindness, not accusation. And third, if they still don't open up, give them space, but leave the door open. Sometimes the best support isn't found in the words you say. It's in your willingness to be present without needing answers. At the end of the day, not every storm makes noise. And when someone starts acting strangely, remember, it may not be about you at all. It may just be someone fighting to stay afloat, quietly hoping you'll see them without making them explain. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. They've outgrown the bond. Let's talk about one of the most painful but necessary truths behind strange behavior. They've outgrown the bond. It doesn't always happen with conflict. Sometimes it comes quietly. They stop responding the way they used to. Their energy feels off. Their presence fades even when they're still physically there. You try to explain it away. Maybe they're busy, distracted, stressed, but deep down you can feel it. Something has changed. The connection isn't what it was. And here's the hard truth. They may not be angry, bitter, or hiding something. They may have simply outgrown the relationship. Here's the truth. When someone begins behaving strangely, it can be a sign of emotional detachment. They're not ghosting you all at once. They're slowly stepping back, inch by inch. Not to hurt you, but because something within them no longer feels aligned with the connection. And instead of speaking about it directly, they allow their behavior to speak for them. Less effort, less warmth, less presence. It's not personal, but it is revealing. When someone stops investing emotionally, their behavior changes first. And if you're paying attention, you'll feel the gap growing long before words are ever exchanged. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a lifeline. Epictetus once said, "Let those who no longer walk beside you continue without you." That's not bitterness, it's acceptance. It's the strength to release what no longer serves you without resentment. People are allowed to change. You are allowed to change. And sometimes that means walking different paths. The mistake is in clinging so tightly to a bond that has already loosened on the other end. When someone begins behaving strangely because they've emotionally moved on, it's not your job to chase. It's your cue to let go with grace. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Chris, had a childhood best friend, Aaron. They'd been inseparable for years. But as they got older, Chris started noticing that Aaron no longer made time, no longer asked questions, and no longer shared anything real. Their conversations became surface level, and eventually, Aaron would leave messages unanswered for weeks. At first, Chris felt hurt, but then he realized Aaron hadn't done anything cruel. He had simply evolved into someone else, with different interests, different values, and a life that no longer naturally aligned with Chris's. And once Chris accepted that, the pain softened. He didn't need closure. He just needed the courage to move forward. So how do you respond when someone starts detaching silently? First, stop forcing connection. If they've shifted, observe it without resistance. Second, reflect without blame. Growth isn't betrayal, it's part of life. And finally, focus on where your energy is welcomed, not where it's merely tolerated. At the end of the day, not every relationship is meant to last forever. When someone outgrows the bond, let them walk. Not because they failed you, but because life is movement, and clinging to what's fading will only keep you from what's waiting. Number 6. They're preparing to exit. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked truths behind strange behavior. They're preparing to exit. Whether it's a relationship, a friendship, or a professional partnership, people rarely leave all at once. Most departures begin in silence. The mood shifts. The conversations grow shorter. The energy becomes uneven. And while everything might still appear normal on the surface, you can feel the pullback happening underneath. They're not gone yet, but they're already walking away in their mind. Here's the truth. Odd behavior is often the prelude to departure. Before someone physically leaves, they usually start to emotionally detach. They stop investing in the connection. They stop caring about little things they once paid attention to. They stop engaging with the same depth. And if you're not paying attention, you'll think they're just having a bad week. But if you look closer, you'll realize they're slowly packing their bags, not in front of you, but behind the scenes. This is where Stoic wisdom offers peace instead of panic. Seneca wrote, "Observe the signs, but do not fear the parting. What leaves creates space for peace." That insight is powerful. It reminds us that endings, while painful, aren't always tragedies. Sometimes they're transitions. Sometimes they're necessary. And if someone is preparing to leave, your job is not to beg them to stay. Your job is to pay attention, accept what's unfolding, and respond with clarity instead of clinging. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Laura, was in a long-term relationship that had always felt steady. But one day her partner began acting different, less affectionate, less present. Conversations became routine, and his patience wore thin over things he used to be kind about. Laura sensed something was wrong, but every time she brought it up, he'd say, "Nothing's going on, I'm just tired." Still, the distance grew, and then 2 months later, he ended the relationship. No fight, no major event, just a quiet goodbye. Looking back, Laura realized he didn't decide to leave that day. He had been leaving for weeks. His strange behavior was never random, it was preparation. So, how do you handle this kind of shift? First, accept what the silence is trying to say. People often speak the loudest when they stop showing up. Second, don't force someone to stay. If they've emotionally checked out, clinging will only delay the inevitable. And third, use their exit as a doorway, not a dead end. What leaves your life makes room for what truly belongs. At the end of the day, you don't need to fear the parting. When someone starts behaving strangely because they're preparing to walk away, it's not your failure, it's their choice. And sometimes, letting go with dignity is the strongest thing you can do, because peace often begins where forced connections end. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7, they're mirroring your change. Let's talk about a surprising reason why someone might suddenly start behaving strangely. They're mirroring your change. It's easy to assume that their shift is about them, but sometimes it's actually a response to you. Maybe you've grown, maybe you've evolved, maybe you've started setting boundaries or prioritizing your peace. And while you're becoming more self-aware, more focused, more whole, someone close to you starts acting distant, defensive, or cold. Why? Because without realizing it, your growth made them uncomfortable. Here's the truth. As you grow, not everyone will feel secure standing beside you. Change forces reflection. When you rise, people around you are forced to look at their own progress, or lack of it. And for some, that reflection doesn't feel good. They start feeling out of sync, left behind, or threatened, even if you never intended to make them feel that way. Your new boundaries make them feel rejected. Your confidence makes them feel exposed. Your evolution makes them question their own stagnation. And instead of communicating that openly, it shows up as strange behavior, short answers, sarcasm, moodiness, or pulling away. This is where Stoic insight helps you make sense of it all. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not fear change in others, fear the stagnation in yourself." That's a reminder not to shrink just to maintain peace. If your growth unsettles someone, that's their internal work to face. You are not responsible for regulating someone else's emotional response to your evolution. You're responsible for continuing to evolve with integrity, even if it shifts the dynamic. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Natalie, used to be a people pleaser. She said yes to everything, never set boundaries, and always put others first. Over time, she began doing inner work, Therapy, journaling, learning to say no. She became more confident, more grounded. But as she changed, one of her closest friends, Melissa, started acting strangely. Melissa would say things like, "You've changed," or "You don't have time for anyone anymore." She began pulling away, growing passive-aggressive, and rarely showed the same support. At first, Natalie felt guilty, but then she realized Melissa wasn't reacting to who she'd become. She was reacting to the loss of control. The dynamic had changed, and Melissa didn't know how to handle that. So how do you respond when someone's behavior shifts because you've grown? First, honor your progress. Don't shrink just to make others comfortable. Second, observe, don't absorb. Their discomfort doesn't mean you've done something wrong. And third, trust that those who are meant to grow with you will rise alongside you, not resent you for evolving. At the end of the day, some people act strangely not because you've changed too much, but because they haven't changed at all. And when your evolution shakes their comfort, remember, your job is to grow, not to stay small for the sake of someone else's security. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.